Great to see you once again, everyone. I'm Bobby Broyles, along with Tim McDonald, with the Week 7 edition of This Week in CA Football, presented by Geico. Tim, there's a lot to get to from last Saturday's action, but first, look who's coming back to Harrisonburg.
Like visiting James Madison, father of the Constitution and mother of college game day crowds.
But the folks here at JMU, they may be catching up to that scene. This might be one of the best scenes we've had. This is awesome. And Lee, you said per capita, maybe the most signs we've ever had.
It looks like it did.
Yeah.
God bless the Dukes, and God bless the United States of America. And there you have it.
That's something, man. What a day. Still got the waves, by the way. Look at the right hand. Outstanding. What a great day to be an American.
Yes,
right?
That's right, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, and the gang from College Game Day are making their return to the campus of JMU. And Tim, right when you think the Dukes and the CA football were at the pinnacle of receiving national attention, this news raises that awareness even more.
Takes it to another level, and after watching all the results from the weekend, not just in FCS, not just in CA football, across the board, everything lined up perfectly for the return of College Game Day to James Madison. The second trip, by the way, in the last 3 years for the Dukes in Harrisonburg. We know what the scene was last time.
Yep.
The best national stage every Saturday for college football. That only strengthens the impact for the conference, for JMU, for Villanova. The game itself was a big one, but now the game between the Dukes and the Wildcats, it just becomes greater for everyone involved. And I know last year, 2 years ago, we recognized how impressive that scene was. We saw the streamers stopping the cameras a couple times. We saw amazing signs, but the last time game day was at JMU in 2015, and judging by the reaction this time from all the Dukes fans all over, Saturday is going to take that to another level, and then some. You can only imagine what the atmosphere on campus leading up is going to be like. And a simple and quick reminder, you can follow social for game day coverage. And Bobby, I know you're going to be there. I know we'll have some CA staffers there as well, providing a behind-the-scenes look at the madness from the Berg. Probably going to start bright and early, maybe 6.
Very
we'll
early.
see. But just search CAA football and join the conversation as well for a hectic and awesome Saturday using the hashtag CAFB.
And like you said, Tim, look forward to breaking down this matchup here in a bit. But first, give us a quick recap of the action from last Saturday with really some fantastic finishes.
That's right. We do have some other games to get to before we get to the madness. But despite having just 4 total games across the board, I thought we learned a whole lot about every team, and for the better or for the worse. In similar fashion as the 2016 meeting, Richmond and UAlbany needed overtime too, in fact, and the Spiders found the win, trailed by 10 in the fourth quarter, tied the game with 1 minute and 27 seconds left. Richmond sacked the Great Danes 7 times in all, blocked a field goal try in the second overtime, and then relied on Griffin Trow for that 41-38 win. And shouts as well to Kyle Auletta, got it done, who has 5th straight 300-yard passing game, tossed 3 touchdowns, ran for another, 62 career passing touchdowns right now, first all-time at UR, so hats off to Kyle Auletta. Obviously a huge win. But in Long Island, Mike and I witnessed a solid, very solid road win for Delaware in comeback fashion. The Hens were down 13 at the break, didn't really look like they were in it offensively, stayed within striking distance, and found some life, I thought, with QB JP Caruso for the 24-20 win over Stony Brook. Malcolm Brown returned a fumble seemingly out of nowhere for 45 yards for a touchdown. Frank Rago kicked a 50-yard field goal, and Troy Reeder and Nasir Adderley both played lights out, 12 tackles each, and limited a defense that allowed Stony Brook just to have 135 rushing yards. First top 25 road win for Delaware since 2013, while Caruso had 1 touchdown passing and 65 yards on the ground, and I thought just added that extra spark. Elon won its 5th straight game, beating William Mary 25-17 at home. A little bit closer in the second half, yet again for William Mary coming back. But 7 sacks and a safety for that Phoenix defense, and a fast start offensively helped the Phoenix race out to a 23-3 halftime lead. Outrushed, outpassed, and the Tribe to move to 3-0 in league play. And all that's left now, I mean, in the latter half of the schedule, playing 3 ranked CAA teams in the final 5 games of the year to try and keep that train rolling. Finally, in Philly, Villanova, an absolutely statement win, 31-0 over Maine. And we mentioned the need for the Wildcats. It would be nice if they could come home and play well. Well, I think they answered that call and then some. It was just the second home game of the year, and they must have been listening. The second shutout of the year as well at home for Villanova limited Maine to 16 total rushing yards and gained 158 yards on their own. Jack Shetlick won his first career college start, even after completing just 3 passes for 61 yards and a touchdown. But it goes to show you just how dominant that Nova defense was, and Nova defense, how it's come through in clutch, especially recently throughout the entire season.
As we look ahead to the weekend, 5 league matchups on the docket. Let's not waste any time. It will be the CA Football Game of the Week on College Sports Live. That theme just keeps happening, the Game of the Week.
Keep it going.
And on Masson 2 as well, as a top-ranked team in the FCS. James Madison takes on Villanova at 3:30. Once again, College Game Day will be in Harrisonburg with coverage beginning at 9 a.m. on ESPN.
Oh, is Game Day in town?
Game Day, yeah.
Okay, in case you live under a rock, we're going to hear a lot about this one, no matter where you are throughout the week leading up to Saturday. At 5-0 overall, the Dukes enter still riding that Division I leading 17-game winning streak and had last week off. They had the bye week to prepare for the Wildcats. Coach Mike Houston, I thought it was interesting, hinted to the fact that in order to keep his players focused this week, they will not be visiting the game day set at any point. Not so fast, my friend. That they will not be walking by. They will not be going on Saturday to the set to keep that focus. Focus is the key word this week for me, considering Villanova right now enters, I think, with plenty of respect among CAA fans. Plenty of respect among followers of this conference, but it's also going to have its backs against the wall this whole time. Surrounding the hype of this game, how does Nova handle that? Jack Shetlick probably didn't expect to be in this position a few weeks ago, but that's why this game is great. That's why he's in this position. He's going to be asked to lead an offense that right now is kind of taking what it can get no matter how it gets there, especially in the last few weeks. Bednarczyk is going to be out, so again, we're going to see a different type of Villanova offense. JMU is well aware of the injuries Nova's had to deal with so far. Again, without Bednarczyk, without Ryan Bell, without Matt Gudzik, how will the Dukes show up? Are they going to have that same fight and fire? You expect that, but you have to show up knowing that those stars are out and knowing it's a new-look Villanova team. Madison's defense turned the corner after the win last year at Villanova. If you remember that one in November, that defense was really forced. As Brian Shore got hurt, the defense kind of stepped up and set the tone for the rest of the playoffs. Comes in right now allowing 11.6 points and 231 yards per game to lead the conference. And you can bet your bottom dollar that the attention is going to be first on stopping the Nova run game and then forcing redshirt freshman Jack Shetlick again to beat JMU, with his arm and force them to really take over the game. On the other end of the equation, JMU's offense likely is facing its best test to date versus a stingy Wildcat defensive unit. Nova forced 6 turnovers in the win over Maine last week, allows 13.2 points per game, and a ridiculous 50 rushing yards per contest. Trey Sharp, Marcus Marshall, we know both of them at times have answered the call and got it done, but they're going to have to get their carries, and I think they will get their carries and try to create running lanes throughout. Can they do it throughout, and can they do it each drive? That's the question. That's what I'm looking forward to finding out. Villanova in that meeting last year limited JMU, I thought. Really key part, 2.9 yards per carry and just 20 points. Still lost, obviously. He was still took that in defeat, but both teams are different right now. Both have progressed differently. You have to believe there's not going to be an empty seat in Bridgeport Stadium come 3:30, and this is one of the premier reasons why we love CAA football so much is for games and opportunities just like this.
Also at 3:30 on Fox College Sports Atlantic and on Fox Sports Go, Maine plays host to Rhode Island. 2 teams looking to get back in the win column and pick up their first league wins of the season.
The definition to me of a who wants it more type of game, in my opinion, and both Rhody and Maine right now are off to starts they didn't anticipate and probably didn't want to be at right now. But it's where they are for the time being, so you kind of have to just handle it and deal with those current situations. The Black Bears need to forget about last week quickly and get to do it at home in Orono for the first time in over a month. The only win of the year, remember, came versus Bryant, the game that Mike and I were at for on-campus coverage. That seems like it was eons ago, but that was in dominant fashion, and the win over the Rams could be critical down the home stretch, especially for Maine looking at the rest of that schedule. At 1-4 overall, Rhody, like Maine, has already had its bye week and turns the page to a new month, trying to get on the right path, trying to find the answers. The Rams right now are 3rd in passing in CAA with 273 yards per game and hope to keep that trend under Tyler Harris. I think it's interesting. Both of these quarterbacks, I think, have shown sides of strength, but both can also limit their mistakes. Harris has thrown for 8 touchdowns and 11 picks so far. Joe Harris-Simiak said this week that Chris Ferguson is still the starter. I know he was taken out in the latter half of that Villanova loss last week, and like Harris, has some chance to cut down on some mistakes. He has 6 touchdowns and 8 picks this year. Whether you believe it or not, whether it's corny, but both of these teams are better right now than their records indicate, and a victory after a slow start to the season is key and absolutely critical in moving forward in the right direction.
Over on Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia and SNY at 3:30, Delaware looks to build off its big road win as the Blue Hens return home to take on William & Mary.
JP Caruso grabbed some momentum last week at Stony Brook, and not just for himself, but I think for his teammates as well, and showing his abilities to possibly be that guy and be that new leader on offense. I'm not saying everything's going to work out perfectly, but if he is the guy this week, and he's going to need to bring that same energy with him and then some. Only went 7 of 14 for 80 yards, but took some shots, and I think took some risks, more importantly, that the Blue Hens needed, and it much timely needed for this offense in order to get some sparks. Both the Tribe and the Hens right now average right around 19 points per game, though UD right now is third in rushing offense with 180 yards per game. 69 second-half points scored for William & Mary in 2017, and it's been that come-from-behind trend that we've seen so far from this season, compared to only scoring 26 first-half points, which has resulted in a few tough holes to climb out of. How many times have we seen William & Mary down at the half, and then all of a sudden it's a 7-10-point game in the second half? The adjustments made by Delaware at halftime versus that Stony Brook team impressed me the most. I think if you're looking at advantages for either team heading in, I think that is the big advantage if you have Delaware. The chance on defense to make adjustments. Playing at home certainly helps versus a William & Mary squad still searching for a CAA win. Both of these teams don't have that one premier, absolute stud running back to handle the load offensively, give him the ball, let him do the work. It's been done by committee and with quarterback play so far. So watch for the impact of that, along with the chances, I think, in the red zone for this one. I think that's going to be critical.
At 4 o'clock on Fox College Sports Pacific and on Fox Sports Go, Towson welcomes Richmond to Johnny Unitas Stadium.
From the diehard fan standpoint and from the blogger standpoint, this one looks like a trap game for the Spiders. But you survive UAlbany at home in double overtime. Kyle Lauletta breaks the all-time passing touchdowns record and is named CAA Offensive Player of the Week. Will it turn out that way? I don't know. On paper, it does say it's a trap game.
All is right in Richmond, right?
Towson is 2-3 overall and also looking for its first conference win of the season. The Tigers had a bye week and probably an important one at this point in the season in order to regain its identity a little bit. 94 rush yards a game, ranks last in the CAA. No Shane Simpson due to injury again this week is difficult, obviously, and clearly they need to find a little bit more playmaker capabilities on offense. Tiger D has been good so far versus the pass, 178 yards allowed per contest, while Lauletta and the Spiders are first right now in passing offense, over 400 yards per game. So you know what to expect when you come into this one. Another week and another obvious choice of how do you answer and how do you identify how to slow down Richmond? That's what Towson is going to be tasked with. Of course, the extra week benefits Towson in getting ready for a team that can put up plenty of numbers, but we don't know right now if the answers will be there offensively for Towson to stack up with Richmond. Do you call it a trap game? Maybe, but I think Richmond right now offensively knows it can put up points.
And wrap up Saturday at 6 o'clock with New Hampshire hitting the road to take on Stony Brook.
Amazingly critical game for both teams, entering on totally different sides, and not absolutely completely, but Stony Brook, you put up 20 points in the first half versus Delaware, and everything's looking great. And then you get shut out in the second half en route to losing its first league game. Not only the first league loss, but also the first loss since week 1 at USF. New Hampshire makes its first road trip, meanwhile, since September 16th, also its last loss at Holy Cross. The Wildcats then stayed home and rebounded with wins over Rhodey and Bryan in consecutive weeks. QB Trevor Knight and receiver Neil O'Connor have been on fire recently, and both these teams have a good quarterback play and a good receiver play. Both Knight's progression at times has shown in the proof of the stats, 13 touchdowns passing and just 3 interceptions. That's been the difference for him personally. New Hampshire is second in passing offense in the CAA and gets some guys back, especially on offense. Kieran Presley should be back after the bye week to help out that pass attack. Joe Carbone and Ray Bolden hooked up for touchdowns twice last week, and Carbone again set a career high, 272 yards and 23 completions total. I mean, Stony Brook had over 400 yards of offense. I think you're talking to Chuck Priore, you're reading the quotes. It's finishing. It's finishing those drives, finishing special teams. The Seawolves D versus the Wildcats offense, plain and simple, that's it for me. I thought the most eye-opening thing that I heard, you look at Tyrese Beverett collecting some of his teammates after the loss saying, we've been through this, we had these type of losses last year. It's how we respond, it's how we get back to the book. That's the key. New Hampshire right now in the first quarter of games is absolutely dialed in. 61 points to 10 points allowed in the first quarter. Watch for the fast start. I think that's key. If Stony Brook can match that in the first half, I think Stony Brook has a great chance, especially at home. But New Hampshire, it's that second half. Can they keep up the momentum on offense?
And also for Stony Brook, the second half, 2 weeks in a row now where they've had big leads in the first half. And
good point.
One against William & Mary, and of course a loss last week to Delaware. For even more coverage this weekend, as always, you can visit casports.com/live scores for stats and streaming information.
We will have a couple of team members, as mentioned, on hand for College Game Day from JMU. Couldn't miss that this weekend.
No, absolutely
not.
You
can also follow the league around all the action from our Snapchat. You got Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, of course. Just search CAA Football.
Impressively, Thursday brings the 5th edition of our Going Deep series, and that feature on the Stony Brook Seawolves will be available on CAFootball.com and all of our social media outlets.
And actually, for the first time since week 1, Mike and I are off this coming weekend for on-campus duties, but we still have one more trip in store next weekend when we visit Newark and the University of Delaware. But I thought Stony Brook absolutely amazing time.
Yep.
Eye-opening experience. I know Mike and I really enjoyed every aspect of our trip. We checked out local seafood down to Port Jefferson, went around the tailgates, some live music, some bull riding maybe even. Some people might have rode the bull a little bit. But met with quarterback Joe Carbone for the feature and his father Guy, who shares a unique connection to CA football as a former player at Rhode Island. So again, be sure to stay tuned to that one. Our 5th Going Deep feature, but very cool to have a dad play in CA football, and now Joe Carbone is also playing in CA football.
That is neat. Look forward to seeing that one. We can't end the show without reminding you all to listen to the Yak podcast on Friday, and our official CA football podcast will break down all the details for Saturday's matchups. JMU alum and Game Day award-winning producer Lee Fitting will be our special guest this week, Tim, as he makes his return to the Yak.
Well, 2 milestones just in that one sentence.
Yeah.
One segment. It's amazing to get someone involved, obviously, with the Game Day crew, break us down through some of those decisions, the info, the insights into the selection process, but it's that much sweeter when you can bring back a former Yakker to the podcast again. Anytime we bring people back, why not?
Just an exciting week in
bring 'em back.
DNC football. Good luck to all the teams this week. Enjoy the games, everyone.